Hey everybody, welcome back to our Kratom Addiction and Recovery Daily Devotional series. So last week we left off where Job was wrapping up this conversation that was going on for many chapters with his friends, where they were questioning why he got into the position that he was in. And there was this dialogue that was going back and forth between them. And so at the end of last week, we left off where Job kind of hit a wall and he cried out to God and was like, if there's anything about me, he's like doing this kind of a moral inventory where he's looking over the things that he could have possibly done wrong and was crying out to God in desperation. And so this week, we're going to go into this really beautiful poetic response that God gives Job. And just a general overview of this week, we're going to read the next few chapters, which is the remaining chapters of this book. And we're not going to really go into tons of just introspective stuff like what we do with these videos a lot of times. And for the next few days, we're going to just be reading this response that God is giving Job. And we may think about just some questions that we can ponder on, but at the end of the week, we're really going to look at all of this and think about it deeply and just wrap up this whole book that we've been in for these past few weeks. But over the next few days, we're going to read these beautiful poetic responses that the Lord gives Job. And I encourage you throughout this week to really think about this. And poetry I love so much for so many reasons, but one of them is that we all interpret poetry differently. And I think that that's one of the beautiful things about Job, is that it's this poetic expression of God's love, God's sovereignty, who God is and how he works. And so as we read these next chapters, I encourage you to think on your own about what this can mean to you. And so that at the end of the week, we're going to go into it and we're going to think about, everything that we've read this past week together. So, okay, today we are in chapter 38. And just a heads up too, these are going to be longer chapters of reading. So we're going to go ahead and read it, just, go over a couple things at the end, and then tomorrow we'll pick up and it's kind of a longer reading. So there's going to be longer readings until about Thursday this week. And we're planning to wrap things up on Friday. Okay, so chapter 38, and this is titled, "The Lord Speaks." Then the Lord spoke to Job out of the storm, and he said, "Who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge? Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set, or who laid its cornerstone, while the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy? Who shut up the sea behind doors when it burst forth from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment and wrapped it in thick darkness, when I fixed limits for it and set its doors and bars in place, when I said, 'This is far, you may come, and no farther. Here is where your proud waves halt.' Have you ever given orders to the morning, or shown the dawn its place, that it might take the earth by the edges and shake the wicked out of it? The earth takes shape like clay under a seal. Its features stand out like those of a garment. The wicked are denied their light, and their upraised arm is broken. Have you journeyed to the springs of the sea, or walked in the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been shown to you? Have you seen the gates of the deepest darkness? Have you comprehended the vast expanses of the earth? Let me tell you if you know all of this. What is the way to the abode of light, and where does darkness reside? Can you take them to their places? Do you know the paths to their dwellings? Surely you know, for you were already born. You have lived so many years. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow, or seen the storehouses of the hail, which I reserve for times of trouble, for days of war and battle? What is the way to the place where the lightning is dispersed, or the place where the east winds are scattered over the earth? Who cuts a channel for the torrents of rain, and a path for the thunderstorm, to water a land where no one lives, an uninhabited desert, to satisfy a desolate wasteland, and make it sprout with grass? Does the rain have a father? Who fathers the drops of dew? From whose womb comes the ice? Who gives birth to the frost from the heavens when the waters become hard as stone, when the surface of the deep is frozen? Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? Can you bring forth the constellations in their seasons, or lead out the bear with its cubs? Do you know the laws of the heavens? Can you set up God's dominion over the earth? Can you raise your voice to the clouds and cover yourself with a flood of water? Do you send the lightning bolts on their way? Do they report to you, here we are? Who gives this wisdom? Who gives the rooster understanding? Who has the wisdom to count the clouds? Who can tip over the water jars of the heavens when the dust becomes hard and the clods of the earth stick together? Do you hunt prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger of the lions when they crouch in their dens or lie in wait in a thicket? Who provides food for the raven when its young cries out to God and wander about for lack of food? So, wow, that's beautiful. That's a lot, that's a lot to wrap our minds around. And that's why I want to take each day that we're in this week and just hear these words, hear this poetry, and, not go into it too deeply until the end, but just a couple things to ponder on when we're reading this beautiful expression of God explaining himself to Job is, God is questioning Job. He's questioning Job in the sense of he's asking him, like, where were you when the earth was made and the heavens were made and all of this stuff? And it's this beautiful expression of God's sovereignty over everything. And I love the lyrical imagery of this chapter and how it talks about different things like, the sea and the heavens and the morning and, the light of dawn and the rain and the hail. And then, talking about the clouds and, the animals of the earth. And it's just this beautiful, like, it's almost like a song to me, where I love writing songs like this. My favorite way to write a song is to not be literal, not to say, this is exactly like, how do you express it? How do you articulate it right now? I like to write songs in a way where there are some questions that are being asked, and that I like to write lyrics in a more abstract way, where I'm painting a picture of, a feeling or a concept, or, the setting of a place, or the way that, the light looks, or something like that. And I feel like when we speak or write or create in a more abstract way, then it gives the listener more of a chance to make their own interpretation of it. And that's what I love about this chapter, is that this is not a literal expression of God and who he is. It is a very beautifully abstract, beautifully poetic way of explaining and illustrating God's sovereignty. And God is responding to Job after this season of suffering for him. And it is such a beautiful way for God to do this. If you hear Peanut snoring in the background, sorry. So that's what today is about. And like I said, we're not going to go into lots of detail with these readings. I really want you to think about and ponder this chapter, and also think about and ponder God's sovereignty in your life and in your situation and in your suffering. Because as we get to the end of this week and we wrap up everything that we've been learning about in Job, we're going to be bringing a lot of deep meaning to this suffering that Job has endured, the suffering that you are enduring, and we're going to look at that and break it down on a deep level. But for today, this is such a cool chapter to just contemplate God's sovereignty over your suffering and what that means to you. So I encourage you to think about it. And if you'd like, you're welcome to share where you're at in the comments section below. And I will see you tomorrow as we pick up in chapter 39. All right, love you guys. See you then. Bye.